Hello, candle lovers. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Greg, and this is all about candles. I have a review for you today from Yankee Candle. This is Sakura Blossom Festival. This candle really doesn't look like much anymore, but as far as the sort of randomly placed clip art on this jar goes, I didn't think it was the worst. The star of the show was the beautifully light pink colored wax on this candle. It really was a lovely, lovely wax. This was a 20-ounce 2-wick tumbler. They say that these should burn for about 110 hours. It definitely did have a very long life to it. I enjoyed this candle. I wouldn't say it was fantastic. I'd say it was good. I'd say it was good. I got the scent notes off the website. They give us a lot of scent notes. Top notes: red berries, apple, and pink grapefruit. Middle notes: rose, freesia, and cherry blossom. Base notes: sandalwood, vanilla, and almond milk. I'm definitely not picking up on all of those. I do pick up on a little bit of actual cherry in here. I think that, for a lot of people, there's an expectation that a cherry blossom candle actually smells like cherries, when in fact it should be more of like a floral fragrance. You know what I mean? It's got a nice sort of soft floral vibe to it. I also pick up on quite a bit of muskiness in this candle, and musk isn't listed in these scent notes. So the top, red berries, apple, pink grapefruit. I don't pick up on the grapefruit at all, and I'm thankful for that. I do think there is a little bit of an apple in there, and by red berries, I'm almost just wondering if they're not signaling like cherry by saying red berry. I know it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but that's kind of me reading between the lines. The middle notes, I definitely pick up on rose and cherry blossom. Freesia, I don't really think so. I get a fair bit of a rose note that's a little bit similar to their Fresh Cut Roses candle, but what I get most of all is a very, very musky, like cherry blossom note. And then in the base, there is something woodsy. I don't think I would necessarily pick out sandalwood, but there is sort of a vague woodsiness. Vanilla, I do pick up on. Almond milk, I don't really pick up on that, but I do pick up on a great deal of musk. It does remind me a little bit of Japanese cherry blossom from Bath & Body Works. I am not a fan of that candle. It's just a little bit too much for me. I actually think that this is a nicer and more nuanced, more palatable version of Japanese cherry blossom, to be honest with you. It is a little bit similar in overall fragrance, but I think this one is a little bit more nicely balanced. It's not quite as perfumey, but it still does have that sort of like musky quality to it. But this candle smells a little bit more natural to me, a little bit more authentic than that Japanese cherry blossom candle does. Overall, I think it's a really nice cherry blossom fragrance. And I liked it. I liked this candle quite a bit. As far as performance goes, I do wish it had been a little bit stronger. It was a fairly nice, clean burn. I know there is a lot of like discoloration and blackness around the side of the jar there. I'm gonna go ahead and say that a lot of that is my fault. I do have a tendency to let these big, taller candles burn for longer than I should. I'm sure Yankee would tell you that you should only let these burn for like 2, 3, 4 hours. But I would probably, especially towards the end, I would probably let this one go off sometimes for like 4, 5, or 6 hours. And so I do think that a lot of the darkness around the side of the glass is my fault. In fact, most of the Yankee candles that I've burned in this format have been really beautifully like clean burns for the most part. So I think there's a little bit of my fault happening with the way that this looks, but the wax didn't actually get that discolored, as you can see there. It was a much prettier shade. It was a much prettier shade of pink before, but for the most part, the wax itself looks pretty clean. So I can't really complain too much about the cleanliness, but the strength and throw I wish had been a little bit better. It got pretty lost in my more open area. I'd say that it was like a 5 in my more open space, which to me is like just barely a passing grade. I give a candle a 5 if I sort of can walk into the space that it's in, and if I can detect it at all, I give it a 5. And then we fall below a 5 if I have to get really close to it. So if my nose has to be like 4 feet away from it, I give it a 4. If it needs to be 3 feet away from it, I give it a 3, right? So this had kind of like a base level presence. I could detect that it was there in my more open area. It did spend most of its time in a bedroom in a hurricane, and in my bedroom in a hurricane, I could get it up to a 6. And so that's pretty good, you know? Like it's not great. My sweet spot for candles is really like a 7 or an 8. I love it if candles are able to give me a 7 or an 8 in a more open area. And yeah, so in my bedroom in a hurricane with the really good deep burns, it did max out at like a 6. And which is kind of odd to me because even smelling it now, it smells like it should be fairly strong, but it just wasn't. A little bit disappointing for Strength and Throw. Would I repurchase this one? I'm not sure. I don't want to say no, absolutely not, but I think probably not next spring. You know, maybe the spring after I might decide to give it another try, but I'm certainly not dying to pick up another one right away, unfortunately. Would I recommend this? That's a tough question. If you like cherry blossom fragrances and you're okay with a 6 for Strength and Throw in a medium space, I did think it was a lovely fragrance. I didn't have any problems with the way that it burned. It lasted a while. I think it's a nice enough format. I've kind of gotten used to these. Yeah, I mean, I'm not blown away by it, but it was okay. It was okay. I feel like the bar is really kind of low for candles right now. And that if I had been burning a lot of like really spectacular candles around the same time, maybe I'd be panning this a little bit more, but I found it to be acceptable. I'm gonna stop rambling now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram at allaboutcandles and email your burning questions to allaboutcandles@gmail.com. If you could hit me up with a like, comment, subscribe to my channel, that would mean the world to me. And until next time, my dear gorgeous and beautiful candle loving friends, let's burn some candles and bitch about it. Thanks you guys. Bye for now.